Good to go.
Everyone, welcome back. We now have a fresh group of panelists with us. And with that, I am going to hand over just for a bit, Lynn Miyauchi. She is from the Pacific Northwest JETAA Alumni Association as one of our advisory board members. But Lynn, you are on mute. As we said before the recruiting, technology hates Lynn, but we all love Lynn.
Hello, everyone. All right, I'm getting thumbs up from my panelists. So welcome to panel 2, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name, as Jessica said, is Lynn Miyauchi. I'm with the Pacific Northwest JETAA Alumni Association and a member of the transitions team. So we are so happy that you're joining us today. During the day, my day job is as the Senior Specialist for Cultural Affairs and Sister City Relations, as well as Public Outreach at the Consulate General of Japan in Seattle. So again, this is panel 2, Japan Career Pathways. And thank you, Kasia and Christine, for sharing your advice and enthusiasm and resources for everyone. That was a wonderful panel. And I'm really excited now and contemplating maybe I should move to Japan, but I won't tell my boss that yet. I was an ALT in Fukui Prefecture in a very small town called Obama. Loved the experience. And as Kasia said, many Jets or those who lived in Japan are drawn back to Japan. And just as Jets come from all types of backgrounds, so too are the jobs that they pursue. Christine also threw out the phrase, every situation is different. That is so true. And today we are so lucky to have 4 panelists joining us from 4 different parts of Japan. And they all represent different possible pathways in intercultural training, tourism, higher education, and entrepreneurship. So they will share their stories and tell about how their JET experiences help them to find their paths to their current positions. And they will be able to share advice on how they achieved where they are now today. But instead of me trying to introduce all the panelists and tell their stories, I'm going to let them do it in their own words. Each of the panelists will tell their story, and then afterwards we'll open up the floor for questions. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. But without further ado, coming in from Tokyo, Nathan DeWitt. He's the senior consultant at Link Global Solution, and his specialty is intercultural training. Nathan, please take it away.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everyone. The first thing I want to say is good morning from Japan and good evening, where most of you are. As some people stated before, they're from Ohio. I'm also from Ohio. If you don't know where Ohio is, just think Gunma. If you don't know where Gunma is, just think, what? Ohio. Okay. Basically, that was my first lesson when I moved to Japan. My name is Nathan DeWitt. I finished my university 97. I was a teacher. I was a math teacher for 1 year before moving to Japan in 1998. And I moved to Gunma. And it was probably the best thing that could happen to me because I found out that per capita, Gunma has more cars than any other prefecture in Japan. So that means it was a very car-based lifestyle. Guess what? Ohio, we're car-based. And it was, so yeah, Ohio doesn't have the mountains Gunma has. Gunma doesn't have the corn that Ohio has, but the lifestyles are really similar. So much so. First summer, 1999, my mother came to visit me, okay, in Gunma, in my village. And she said to me, after 1 week in Japan, she said, can we see something Japanese now? And I was like, oh my God, it really is just like Ohio here. so let me back up a little bit. The first word I learned in Japanese was good morning, because I'm from the good morning place. The second word I learned in Japanese was big sister. Does anybody know big sister? How do you say big sister in Japanese? Anybody?
As if they're all muted.
Oh, no. I was looking for a chat. Anybody help me out?
Got some Ane.
Ane, yes, there it is. Kate, I see you. Yes. And thank you, Casey, because that's what and you know what my name, Nathan, sounds like in Japanese? It sounds like what Casey wrote, Nei-san. Okay, so I was big sister from the good morning place. All right, so I got teased a lot. Anyway, as I mentioned, I was a math major in Ohio. I finished, I was going to teach math, and my original impetus for trying to go overseas was very simple. I wanted to teach in higher education. I wanted to teach at a private institution. I wanted to teach where I would be paid for what I was worth. So, how to make myself more marketable? I need international experience on my CV. Okay, let's do that. So I looked at Italy, I looked at Japan. I'm mathematical, not logical, okay? I looked at Italy and I looked at Japan, and Italy didn't call me back. So I was applying for the JET program. My father was living in Chicago at the time. From Ohio to Chicago, about 5 hours by car. I was going there for the interviews, got it, over the moon anyway. I moved to, as I mentioned, I moved in 98. I was a teacher for 3 years. I worked in a local place called Fujimi. It means you can see Fujisan. Guess what? Every day I stood on the veranda of my school and I said, look, Kogure Sensei, look, today you can see it. He said, no, that's not it. And then a storm would come through and the clouds would blow away and it'd be a beautiful, clear day. We're on Mount Akagi. And I said, look, today you can see it. And he's like, no, that's not it. And he said, Nate, many, many years ago, we could see Fuji. We can't see Fuji anymore. And later I was more heartbroken because I found out there's Fujimis everywhere in Japan. It's like a Springfield or something, I don't know. It's like Springfield in America, you find them everywhere. But I was in that village for 3 years. After 3 years as an ALT, I was recruited. I would like to say I was aggressively recruited to Gunma Kencho. Now, why do I say aggressively? Because I got a call from the local Board of Education. I got a call from the Kyoikicho. And he and I had spoken in my 3 years in that village. We'd spoken twice. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to Fujimi. That was the first time. And the second time was some event. Oh, hey, that was it. Okay, we did not speak. He called me on the phone. We spoke in Japanese for 30 minutes. He would not let me off the phone. And I was like, what? I was like, but no, I got to go home. And he's like, yeah, but they really want you down in Mayabashi. I was like, yeah, but I don't. Backstory, I was offered a job in Tokyo 2 weeks previous. And so I couldn't say yes. And I had already said yes to the job in Tokyo because I knew I was finishing as a JET. And, but when the Kyoikicho said to me, Nate, come on. I finally relented. I said, okay. I said, fine. So I went to the Gunma Kencho. I had the interview, and basically the upshot was I had been requested to move to the Kencho and work there as an ALT support. ALT, not supervisor, but just a kind of support guy. What that meant was there were ALTs all over Gunma working with different teachers. And the ALTs were coming from various backgrounds, various countries, various cultures. And the teachers weren't always getting along. My job was to go to these local schools and help the local teacher and the new ALT work together more smoothly. And guess what? It worked. I would go in for like 2 days or 3 days or even a week sometimes. And we were friends and we're all friends and it's going great. And then I go back to the Kensho. And about a week later, sometimes 2. Hey, Nate, how's it going? Hey, man, how's it going? Yeah, they're doing it again. When can you come back? And that was my lesson in intercultural communication. I was not the key. It was a different understanding. There were different expectations. And so when I was recruited by my current company, Link Global Solution, back in 2003, I took the opportunity because I could see parallels between what they were trying to do for Japanese business people and what I had been trying to do for the ALTs and the Japanese teachers in Gunma. The story I've just related to you, honestly speaking, I've been telling that story for 19 years, okay? Because it still is very relevant for a lot of the people I'm working with. Now, when I came to Japan, the people talked about internationalization. When I moved to Tokyo, people were talking about internationalization. Now, people are talking about globalization. And even though people are moving less, the global connections are increasing. Because, you know, before I could avoid it, or I could send somebody to talk to you, or we have a guy over there, just talk to him, talk to the local guy, he can help you. Now, people have to connect. They have to talk to each other. So my job is because of COVID, I thought my job was going to decrease because, hey, you know, lockdowns, SOEs, you know, people can't move, business doesn't stop. Business doesn't stop. So the company I work for, I've thrown the link in the chat, and you can just see a little bit about what they are. We're actually a smaller company. The larger company is called Link and Motivation, and that's the group I've been working with. Again, gosh, we were a smaller company when I joined in 2003 in Shinjuku, and we were bought. It was an acquisition. We were acquired in 2011, 2012, maybe. And so for the past 10 years, we have been part of this larger organization, hence Link Global Solution. That is the main story. I'm not sure how much more time I have on here, Lynn. 1 minute, I got 1 minute. Oh, thank you, Lynn. That is very helpful. See, Lynn knows technology. She's fine. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Anyway, actually, Lynn's is low tech like me. Yes, no, yes, okay. But there's a lot of stories and there's a lot of information. But what I find the best way for me to connect my information to what you want to know is to wait for your questions. So my favorite part of a presentation is actually the Q&A. So my presentation, or the hapyo, is finished. Looking forward to connecting with you guys and what you actually want to know. Okay. Talk to you again soon. Lynn, back to you.
Thank you so much, Nate. Wow. Who needs coffee when you have Nate on there? Like the Energizer Bunny. So thank you again. Again, he's offering to answer a lot of questions. So start putting your questions in that chat and he'll get back to them. So we're going to switch gears a little bit right now, and we are going to hop over to Kyoto. And I'd love to introduce Seanacey Pierce. She's an Ikebana instructor, as well as the co-owner of the Kinse Ryokan Inn. Seanacey,
Hi.
welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. A little caveat, I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to be sucking on throat lozenges while I talk. But I'm really happy to be here. And I will try to give as clear of a path as I can. And also looking forward to the question and answer session too. And I think I was having some technical difficulties with my slides, but I think Bahia has
Yes,
me
I'm
back
ready.
up.
I'm going to share
Okay, great.
them right now. Can you see the
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just tell me when you want me to go to the next one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So my career path in Japan started with JET in 2007, and I'm still here now. And this person, this picture in this first slide is myself and my Ikebana and tea ceremony teacher. Her name is Yabe Sensei, and she also happens to be my husband's aunt. So she's the person who's sort of responsible for a lot of the things that I'm doing now. Okay, so next slide, please. So my initial interest in Japan was actually for printmaking and papermaking. And also I wanted to put personal relationships in there because I met the person who's now my husband when I was a senior in college, and he was a big part of the reason that I was motivated to get myself to Japan. So those were the two things that brought me to Japan. And then the things that I'm doing now, I co-own Kinse Ryokan, which is a guest house, and we also have a coffee shop and bar on the first floor. And I teach Ikebana workshops also in the cafe and bar space. And then I'm a mom to a 4-year-old, which is, I would say, arguably the most challenging job I've had in my lifetime so far. So I wanted to put that in there as well. Okay, next slide, please. And I know every situation is different. Mine is particularly specific. And I wanted to put this here right at the beginning, just because I think if there's one thing to take away from sort of my story, it's that it's okay for things to go in a roundabout way. It's okay if your direct path to your career goal seems to be sort of blocked and you have to take a detour. And sometimes the detours themselves can be the most interesting part. So this is totally something I stole from my mentor in college and my Japanese teacher. I had come into his office as a senior. I was unsure about whether to accept the JET program offer, what I was going to do. And he started drawing on the back of an envelope and saying, you know, it's really tempting to kind of box yourself into a category or something that you think you should be doing or working towards. And while sometimes it works out, it can be really rigid and hard to kind of get there if you find yourself blocked. And he started sort of doodling the hiragana character. And he asked me to notice how it sort of spiraled or curved around, and asked me to sort of keep that mentality going forward, this idea that instead of boxing myself in, I could sort of circle around the things that I wanted to do and work towards them in that way. And that's been really helpful for me over the past 10 years. And even now, I'm finding myself sort of circling back around to some of the initial things that brought me to Japan. Okay, next slide, please. So my career path from 2007 as a new JET to now, this is one of my favorite pictures of our building, our Kinse Ryokan building. It's about 250 years old, so something is always breaking. And my husband jokes that his job is that he's like the janitor and maintenance man, because we are always trying to figure out how to fix different things in it. But I really love it, and I love, you know, being the person to take care of it. Okay, next slide, please. So when I was on JET, I spent 1 year in Tochigishi and then the next year in Kyoto. And I worked in junior high schools and elementary schools. And for me, it was really a way to just get to Japan. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I had a great time, especially in the elementary schools. It was a lot of fun. And I was thinking about how it helped me in my career later. And a lot of the things that I felt like I got out of it, I didn't really appreciate until 5 years out from, you know, having completed JET. So one thing is that I learned the kind of conduct expected in classrooms and meetings and in more formal situations. In my life now, because I'm a small business owner and self-employed, it doesn't come up a lot, but there are times when I need to be professional and go into a classroom setting. I taught some lessons for the Doshisha University Ikebana club. So to be comfortable going into a more formal educational setting and knowing how to conduct myself was really important. And I felt like JET gave me plenty of experience with that. And then one of the most fun things is that I have common ground with any Japanese person I meet because I can talk about kyushoku, school lunches. I can talk about undokai, the sports festivals. And there's something really, really important, when people get to talk about their childhood memories and have something to connect on that. So that's been a lot of fun as well. And then it also gave me clarity about the kind of work I wanted to do. So I realized that I really enjoyed being in Japan, but being in a large scale classroom setting where I was with, 20 or 30 students was not something that I was great at. And I realized that I was much better in small groups. And so that has affected the way that I run my Ikebana workshops. I keep it very limited, to maybe 4 people, 6 people maximum, so that I have a chance to really connect one-on-one with the people that I'm teaching. Okay, next slide, please. After JET, I was unsure about what direction I wanted to take. And I emailed my mentor and my former Japanese professor, the person who had the idea about the hiragana character. And I just updated him and said, I'm coming to the end of my 2nd year on JET. I'm not sure what I want to do. And he emailed me back and said, well, there's this position coming open as the program administrator for the associated Kyoto program. Do you know anyone who might be interested in applying? And I said, me, and wrote back this really excited email, proposed myself as a candidate, and went through the interview process and then ended up having that be my next step. So that was a nice way to get back to to get back to the States for a little bit, and then to still remain connected with Japan. Okay, next slide. Then 2013 to 2015, I got married. I moved back to Japan. I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do with myself. And I had been studying Ikebana sort of all along since 2008. Okay, next slide, please. And sort of as I studied Ikebana, my Ikebana teacher encouraged me to get licensed. I started teaching in 2014. I was not sure what was, what, if anything was going to come of it, but found that I really enjoyed it. And Kyoto was going through a tourism boom. So at first my workshops were really focused on tourists coming through. And with the pandemic over the past 2 years, I've really switched from being focused on tourism to cultivating a group of local students who come in for weekly lessons. And we'll see what happens in the future too. Okay, next slide. And then in my future plans, of course, continuing work with the Ryokan, continuing Ikebana, and then I'd really like to get myself circled back around to printmaking, which is one of the things that brought me to Japan in the first place. So that's my sort of future goal. And then a few tips for doing creative work in Japan, investing in those personal connections, keeping in touch with mentors. My Ikebana teacher really helped me and pushed me along in my career, taking the long view, especially right now with the pandemic sort of throwing a wrench in everyone's plans, and having flexibility and sort of being willing to circle around what you want to do. And then my third tip is try living in Kansai. I love it here. Kyoto is a wonderful place to be doing creative work. There's a really vibrant community here of people, and the rent is not too expensive. So that's my tip for being in Kyoto. And then the last slide, please. Thank you for listening. I look forward to any questions, and feel free. I was hoping to be in some of the breakout sessions today, and I'm not sure if my voice is going to hold up. So if I have to bow out, please feel free to get in touch with me via email as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Seanacey. And yes, please, by all means, pop in another lozenger and take care of your voice. And as Seanacey said, the importance of connections cannot be undervalued, as well as she gave a great example of taking a passion, Ikebana, and then creating opportunities through that. So now from Kyoto, we're going to hop over to Hyogo, and we have Markane Sipraseuth, that's an instructor at Kwansei Gakuin University, and his specialty is higher education, and he's going to share his story. Markane?
Hey everyone, just let me get this slide ready. What happened? Uh-oh, I have the lens technical challenge. Just
The curse. I'm sorry.
what happened to it? Okay, I think I found it. Sorry, bit under the weather, but thank you for inviting me, everybody, Lynn, Jessica, and Bahia. And let's see, can you see the slide? Can you hear my voice? I guess that's more important.
You're perfect.
Okay, okay, let me get my mini screen ready here. Just a moment. I need a bigger screen. Timer, okay. But okay, so good morning or afternoon or wherever you are. My name is Markane or Markane sometimes. So I'm working at Kwansei Gakuin University as an assistant professor, or they also call it IFO, English teacher. Also at Kyoto University in the economics department as a PhD student. And I was a Hyogo Jet from 2003 to 6. So let's jump in. So let me add some of my stories, a lot of great stories from Nathan and Seanacey earlier. So in 2003, I guess backing up. So in 2003, when I applied to JET, before I was just snowboarding for just 1 year, I had nothing to do. And then my UW advisor said, hey, why don't you do something with your life? So this was at the time of 9/11. Before I was working as a, how you say, like at a tech company. Basically, it was like Google Maps, but in Seattle. But the company closed, had no job. So JET came along, so great opportunity. So I said, hey, I'll give it a try. And so I got accepted and it was great. And then I was talking to Lynn, I remember. And I said, Lynn, I got into a soccer accident. I feel like I'm dying. I'm in the hospital. And should I go to Japan this year? I had internal injuries. I couldn't walk. I was bedridden for like, I think like 2-3 weeks. And like I had lacerated livers. Like, is there a hospital in this Tatsuno place? I didn't know where Tatsuno was. And somebody from the JET office called me back and said, yeah, it's about 30 minutes away. It's not too bad. It's like from, I think, from downtown Seattle to, you know, like, oh, Northgate or something. And I go, well, okay, that seems close enough. So I went to Japan. And luckily, I I went. In 2003, I arrived in Tatsuno in Hyogo, and then I'll go with a quick talk first. So 3 years on JET, it was great. I worked at junior high school and elementary school. After that, I wanted to stay in Japan more. And luckily, one of my co-teachers said, hey, there's a job opening at this private school. Why don't you go? Great. So I got to stay in Japan another 2-3 years, working at Toyodai Himeji High School, before pretty famous baseball school. After that, I was teaching as an ALT, but I wanted to kind of teach by myself. I wanted to be my own teacher. So I said, hey, what do I need to do? I need to get a master's degree. So I went back to Seattle, got my master's degree. And then luckily I applied from America, from Seattle, and got hired at Kwansei Gaidai University. So that's where I started teaching at higher education. I taught there for 5 years, lived on campus, it's cool. And then went to Himeji Dokyo, and now I'm at Kwansei Gakuin University. So let me talk a little bit about the first question here. What are you doing now? Since we got here. So I'm working at Kwansei Gakuin University. It looks like a school that belongs in California. It's very beautiful. This is the most green I've seen in Japan. It's famous for football. The governor of Tokyo is alumni. For higher education, it's similar and different than being ALT. So let me try to quickly go through this. Wake up really early. I wake up, if it's an early class, maybe around 5. I have a really long commute, 2.5 hours one way, and then 2.5 hours back. So a 5-hour commute. I don't recommend it. Here's on Mondays, research day, so which is quite nice. So depending on the university, you can have 3-day weekends. And then I would start on Tuesday. You can come in anytime you want, just as before class. So similar to, I guess, teaching in the junior high school, I mean, communication, but of course at university it's a little bit higher level. So here I have a career English class. So I teach a business course like entrepreneurship, project-based learning, talking about SDGs, CSRs. So how to preparing students for careers. Also a lot of, so later on, a lot of presentations, teachings, and then get off pretty late. So I don't get home till like 9. But this is the commuting style. Before I lived on campus at the other university, so it was just a 5-minute commute. Okay. Let's see. And then on the other side here, for example, on a Wednesday, it's wonderful. You get to work with some international students. I have an international class. So I work with Chinese students, Korean students, teaching essay writing. And then there's also a lot of different other writing classes. But other classes you could teach is, for example, you have reading classes. You could teach some novels at the higher education level. So use like The Last Lecture or The Hunger Games. So students are, quite fun. So, but it's a bit different as JET, where you're more closely tight-knit as a school community, where university is pretty big. So you're kind of on your own. So just to wrap up, so of course you're teaching here, but then also teaching at university, you're required to do research, which is quite fun. So if you're interested in learning about education or psychology or intercultural, connections, it's very exciting. Also, you get to travel to different conferences. Another good thing about teaching at university is the free time. So I chose it a lot to spend time with the family. So if you're getting a little bit older and choosing a different career path, higher education is quite nice. I have like 3 months vacation, which is quite nice per year. I'll do this in 2 minutes. How has JET helped you? So here's my junior high school, Ogawa Sensei. Observe and try. So of course, career-wise, it has connected a lot. So just by watching the wonderful Japanese teachers, I could learn a lot of kind of stealing their ideas and getting their tips, and then just trying things. 2, Doraemon Pocket. I have a pocket full of skills that I have gathered and continued just observing classes and other teachers. So teaching low level, higher level, middle level, trying different things. You can get all these skills. 3, honest feedback. This is actually my neighbor. The Kyoto sensei is now my neighbor. Long story. But he always, if I did something wrong, he always told me. I was young and kind of dumb sometimes, so I didn't know. So he would always tell me when I did something wrong, but I really appreciated that. And that was even as a teacher, a lot of teachers gave me great feedback. It's just like Kobe Bryant, how to be great. You always get honest feedback. 4, enjoy life. This is my favorite basketball team. We were the worst. We lost every year. And I joined them, and then I showed them the zone defense. So it was like a Disney movie. And then the last year they won the regional championship. But they're a great group of kids. So also when we teach, you also have to remember it's about life. So quick last advice. So I got 3 things. One of my favorite speakers, Randy Posh, famous Carnegie Mellon professor. So he said, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. For everyone out there, basically the harder you try, the more luck you will have. So keep on trying. If you want to teach in university or get a new career, keep trying, keep trying. The more you try, the more luck you'll get and the more opportunities you'll get. One of my favorites, I met the real Conan near Obama or Lynn. So I asked, Conan, what's your advice? I'm trying to look for a new career actually. And he said, be yourself. I was like, oh, that's it. And he said, yeah, just be yourself. So one of the most greatest down-to-earth guys, he's a comedian, but it's so easy to talk to him. And his wife's from Seattle. I didn't even know that. So he was like asking me about Seattle. I was like, what? But yeah, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. And then last from me, a little bit combination with Randy Posh. It's like, if you're going to sell something, sell education. The world needs you. We need more business women, businessmen selling education, making our future brighter with the young people we work with. Plus, PS, you get paid to learn and travel too. So, so thank you, everyone. So hope to see you again. Take care.
Thank you so much, Markane. And Conan, I was at a local park running there for a fundraiser, and this strange guy ran past me, 6 feet tall, bright red hair. It was Conan. So yes, he pops up quite a bit. But thank you so much for sharing those words of inspiration and telling how you kind of found your path in higher education. I know that there are some questions coming in on the chat. And so, You can either answer those in the chat or we'll address them afterwards. And now we are moving on to Yamagata. So Derek is the co-founder of Hidden Japan, and he's going to talk about his venture into tourism through entrepreneurship in creating his own company. So Derek, please share your story.
Hi, everyone. So can everyone hear me, first of all? Okay, I'm good to go.
Loud
Okay.
and clear.
All right, great. Let me share my screen right now. I got a short presentation. All right, can you see this? Yep, okay, great. All right, so yeah, my name is Derek Yamashita. I was a JET in 2015. I think I have a bio here, actually. Yeah, so I went to UCSB, studied international relations. And you know, I was originally going to go to law school. You know, my mother's an attorney, my brothers are doctors, so very much I think the expectation was for me to like either you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be going to finance. That was the expectations from my parents and really just a lot of my friends who went into tech. And you know, I really thought that I was going to go into a master's and then into a career. I never thought that I'd stay in Japan. It was only supposed to be a one year gap year. But what's interesting, I first want to start is that when I joined JET, I got placed in Tsuruoka City in Yamagata Prefecture, and it's a really small city. It's really rural out in the countryside. And to be honest, when I joined JET, I wanted to be in Tokyo. I wanted to be in Kyoto. I didn't really want to be in the Japanese countryside because I studied abroad in Tokyo, so I had a lot of friends already, so I wanted to be near them. But I got placed, you know, about 5.5 hours from Tokyo, really in the middle of nowhere. And what was hard for me, and one thing I want to emphasize is the people in JET. I talked about this in the anniversary video for USJETAA Alumni Association, but just don't be open, like a lot of people are saying, because when I first tried to look it up on Google, Tsuruoka City, you know, there was horrible information. There was like outdated articles with bad English, really like film camera era pictures. And I really thought I'd be placed somewhere that had truly nothing, like somewhere like this. Also, the board of education there didn't do a very good job, because during their orientation, all they sent over was this, just saying, yeah, Tsuruoka City, about your city. Here's the population, here's the weather. But it didn't say anything about just how beautiful and how wonderful the Japanese countryside is. And so, you know, to be honest, I almost rejected my JET application, and I'm very glad I did not, because once I came to Japan, once I came to Tsuruoka, I was just blown away by how beautiful the Japanese countryside was. You know, for me, doing outdoor activities, cycling, hiking, fishing, good food, you know, outdoors, you know, that's all the stuff I love in my life. And, you know, 10 minutes from my apartment, I could see the waterfall in the top left of the screen. You know, in a 25-minute bike ride, I could be at the base of Mount Chokai on rice fields, and, you know, picture perfect dream. It was like the roads had no cars. The roads were well paved and beautiful scenery. It's a dream. Like in California, God, I'd have to drive like 2.5 hours to get to a route even nearly as beautiful as that. And so, yeah, I fell in love with the Japanese countryside when I was there. And after I did JET for 1 year. JET for me was always a gap year. It was always a year just to experience Japan. But for me, and what I want to emphasize to people who are thinking about doing JET or on JET currently, it led to a lot of opportunities. I thought that I'd have to be placed in Tokyo or Kyoto in order to land a job, because, truth be told, I went to some job fairs when I was on JET, and I got into the 4th interviews for 2 companies, and then the guy said, "Okay, we want to invite you to the final interview. When can you come?" And I already took a couple of days off for JET, and I couldn't take any more days off. So I said, "Okay, maybe in 2 weeks I can come to Tokyo." And he says, "Okay, thanks." And then they never answered me. And then I mailed them back saying, "Hey, do you guys still want to confirm the interview date?" And they said, "Oh no, we already chose someone." And then later I asked the interviewers, "Okay, so can you give me some constructive feedback about why I wasn't chosen?" And then he just says, "Well, to be honest, the person we hired, he met the very next day when we sent, 'When can you meet next?'" So, you know, I thought I was a little bit discouraged when I was a JET, because I thought that, you know, being 5 hours out from Tokyo, Kyoto, from the job fairs and the companies that are hiring, I thought that it meant I couldn't get a job in Japan. But it was a good thing because in the end, being placed in the countryside and being a foreigner in the countryside, you stand out. You get to meet a lot of people. If you go to a lot of community events, you're going to meet a lot of different members of the community. And I, during my year on JET, I was doing a lot of photography. I was doing a travel blog. I was getting involved in volunteering in the local community. And a local company there, when they found out that I was going to stay only for a year, they said, well, I know we plan to leave, but we really need someone to help with our international promotion. It was a 100-year-old company, 1,000 people. So basically they hired me directly, and they hired me outside of the hiring season. And we negotiated the terms of my own job. I did their photography, all their international promotion, and I was traveling around Japan for that. I did that for about 2 years. And then after that, I met some more people at various events. And then I decided that, people in the travel, like, people don't know the Japanese countryside. People who travel to Japan, they always go to Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. They never get off the beaten path, especially not in Yamagata, where I was based. And I loved the region where I was in so much that I decided to make a travel website with some business partners. And we did this as a side gig at first, but then once we got contacted by the government and other travel companies, we broke off and formed our own company called Hidden Japan. So basically, yeah, when you search Yamagata, our site comes up. When you search a lot of rural locations, we're number 1, number 2. We built up our social media entirely from pictures and media from the countryside, from the rural part of Japan. And our travel company, we focus entirely on off the beaten path locations. We focus on deep Japan experiences. We don't so much focus on sightseeing even. It's all about experiences, all about meeting local people, all things that, you can't do unless you know, or you have an in with Japan, unless you know a friend in Japan that can introduce you to the local people. So we kind of built our company around that concept of being that local contact and forming those local experiences. And so, yeah, we also ruled like promoting off the beaten path travel in Japan. It's promoted by the government, promoted by a lot of regional municipalities. So we've been hired for we take part in a lot of government projects to make travel websites for national government, for prefectural government. We work with a lot of foreign media. For example, our Yamabushi mountain monk experiences was featured on the front page of Japan Times and had a 2-cover page 2 and page 3. And Gaijin Pot were on there. I worked with NHK World to make a program on the waterfall meditation. We work with Anime Expo to present part of the Maiko tea houses, Iaido. Also, before COVID, we were doing a lot of overseas events. We were bringing in artisans from Japan into cultural centers and cultural venues in Los Angeles. So, for example, we worked with the we worked with the Little Tokyo community to bring a chef's event. We brought 2 famous chefs over. We did culinary events, culinary workshops, sold out everything immediately. It was wonderful. We were going to go back and do a whole Yamagata fair with like 10 artisans in 2020, if we could have. I work with the cruise ship industry. I get hired to help with the cruise ships because cruise ship passengers, they want to experience more authentic, deep experiences. So we get hired to help with that. The government hired me to represent Yamagata, where I went to Germany, presented Japan. I recently worked with the Tokyo Olympic Committee, and I produced promotional material for 12 of Japan's 47 prefectures because Japan was promoting its 47 prefectures. So traveled around Japan for 2 months to do that. Worked with the US Embassy to guide their families. And here are some of the experiences we do, just working with local people. And this is why being placed in the countryside is really strong for you, because if you're in Tokyo, you're not going to form the connections you need to make these experiences. If you're in JET for 3 or 5 years, you can become friends with the local community, and you have the opportunity to form experiences that nobody can ask. If a Tokyo company asks these people saying, hey, can you let me into your home? Can we harvest in your garden? No one will even answer that message. They won't trust, because having that personal connection is everything in Japan. So a Tokyo travel agency, they can't do these experiences. And this is what you should use as a JET if you're based in the countryside. Form connections with your local community. There's a lot of other things you can do. I'm going to answer them more in the Q&A. But really, being placed in the countryside can actually be, it can form a wonderful job for you. You can form the job you want to have, as opposed to going to job forums and applying for existing careers. So yeah, we also do sushi workshops. You work with the chefs, you fillet the fish, you learn how to maintain your knives, and you make your own masterful plates of sashimi or sushi. We do education tours for universities. So we bring some international students out or from abroad, and we take them into like a traditional sukimono factory, over 120 years old, back access, meet the owners, the 7th generation head. Normally you can't do these tours, but because we know the person, we can arrange things. Farmer homestay, we do a lot of YouTube videos. Zen meditation, cooking courses, and we do private micro performances because the Maiko Tea House here is I used to work for the company that owned them. So overall, yeah, what I want to emphasize is that there is definitely the traditional career path in Japan, which is going to job fairs and applying and getting your own work. But Seanacey, has also done this path. I think there's also what do you call self-entrepreneurship, where you can create your own job. I think one thing I want to emphasize is that forming a company is difficult in Japan. So if you can, try to find some Japanese people to work with, try to find some friends who could help you out, at a minimum help you out. And maybe if you can, if you have a really good idea, try to convince someone to work with you to start up a business idea. It doesn't have to be full-time. They can partner with you part-time. I have 2 main Japanese business partners I started the company with. And so we started slow. We started making a website as a side gig. And then once it showed potential, then we all quit our jobs and formed this new company. So can I get a time check? How many more minutes do I have?
You've just ran out of time.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Derek. Great example of what you can do in the Inaka, because in the earlier session, there was a question, what if I don't want to work in a big city? What kinds of opportunities are there? And you and Seanacey Seanacey is in a big city, but you are giving a great example of creating something to fit a need. You're doing great work for the community, exposing them, bringing in income, and then also helping to promote the beauty of the area. And so thank you so much for that. We do have some questions coming in. And so also on the topic of in the Inaka, or kind of off the beaten path choices for a career, in the group today, there is a person by the name of Angelica, who was a JET from Oregon, and now she is a landscaping gardener. So that's something that she pursued over in Japan, another JET alumni. So for our speakers, here are some of the questions that we received. Feel free to answer them. Hang on just a second. Some of these are for specific people. So let's see here. So this is a question from Daniel, and it's for Nathan. I would love to know what type of training Japanese expats and their families are provided. In Columbus, Ohio, we have Honda and their suppliers. I often wonder if expectations are correctly set based on my experiences with language training program.
Thank you. Thank you for the, I was actually spending a bit of time typing out a message to Daniel about that. And it's great. It's because they're one of the examples that I often refer to when people, when I'm online doing training, and people say, yeah, well, I worked in a previous company in Ohio. And I was like, really? And I just start smiling. And they're like, yeah, it was one of the other companies. I'm like, you work for Honda, it's okay, carry on. Because they're the big name. When you work in Central Ohio, you work for Honda or a Honda affiliate, a provider of some sort. Daniel, the question is awesome, because what I find is the affiliates, the suppliers, the tire makers, they often make our training a requirement. And so, we reach out to them, we give them a training from, usually we are one part of a week-long training. So there's kind of leadership training. There will be a safety training, local requirements, taxes, risk management. They have a whole lineup usually. And the intercultural communication training is usually one part of that. But as I mentioned in my written response, for what I find is the tendency I find is the affiliates require the bigger names like Honda, they look to their expats who've already been overseas many times to fill in the blanks. You know, well, what worked last time will probably work this time. That's not always the case, as you probably have already experienced and found yourself. Okay. So yeah, would love to chat more offline about it, but yes, definitely.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Derek.
much, Nathan.
Or thank you, Nathan.
So I have a question for Derek, and a couple people have asked similar ones. This particular version of the question is from Rennie, and they say, I'm in Kagoshima. I'm in a similar position as Tessa, who's another person that's trying to promote an area, and they are new to it. They have photography skills, but are unsure what the next step would be. How would they promote their areas? Do you have a guidebook, or have you thought about putting together a guidebook telling your experience and how you built up all the different connections, or some advice for them?
I don't actually have a guidebook, and I've been thinking about doing a YouTube video for it, at least maybe. We'll do a YouTube channel, but what I'd say to Rennie is that especially if you're on your last year of JET in Kagoshima, that means you know all the places, you know a lot of connections. So now would be the year to go definitely document, take a lot of pictures, take them in raw format so you can edit them later. And I would say start up a blog, start up a travel blog in your area, put it in your own voice, your own words. Maybe start up a YouTube channel if you're comfortable with that too. And you know, I think there's another question too, asking if we're hiring and if there's new jobs in the market. And one thing I want to emphasize is that because of COVID, the travel industry in Japan got decimated. Like about 60% of the people I know in the industry all lost their jobs. But once travel reopens in Japan, I mean, you have like JTB, HIS, the big Japanese companies, but there's the big travel companies that do bus tours. But then there's the small boutique agencies like Hidden Japan and other agencies. But like we luckily we do a lot of government PR work, and I do a lot of photo work, so we've been able to survive. But so many other small specialty companies have went out. So when Japan reopens, there's going to be a severe lack in local planners and guides, and there's going to be a massive need to hire new people. We're actually we will be probably trying to hire 3 or 4 people once we get a solid reopening on Japan, and I'm sure a lot of other companies are hiring too. So the reason why you want to start a blog, a YouTube channel, get really active on social media doing promotion is because when you're applying for tourism jobs, especially at small boutique companies, of course, we like to see, you know, if you have a master's or something, that always looks nice. But the most important thing is if I can see, you know, your travel blog, if I can see your voice on a YouTube video where I can see how you guide, where I can see how you present, where I can see your mentality and how you present and present, you know, rural parts or certain in parts of Japan. So during your last year, definitely capture a lot, start writing a lot, and set the groundwork because there's a lot of opportunity coming.
That's excellent advice, and oh, that's exciting. So anyone out there, start getting your YouTube or Instagram or blogs, get those in order. We're out. Are we out of time, Jessica? We have
we're
one more
extending
question.
so you have 8 minutes.
Okay, excellent. So just wanted to squeak in a quick question for Markane. They were wondering if a graduate degree is needed for teaching higher ed in Japan, and do you have any advice on recruiting agencies?
Okay. Yeah, for higher ed, master's degree is required. I've seen you could get it online or, you know, on campus these days. So, and any discipline is usually okay, but probably they prefer more like something in TESOL or education. But a lot of time I've seen people with different master's backgrounds, and then that's still okay. Name brand, I don't think it matters too much. Any university is all right. Where to find a job? I need to look it up. I think I use JASIT is one. I'll put it in the chat. I'll find some links. But there are some special, if you are so there's two kinds of jobs, I'll just say real quick. So for people who are in Japan, so then you have a visa to work in Japan already. So that's where a majority of the jobs are. But if you're coming from overseas, then you need so some universities hire especially from overseas. So that's how I first came. So you need to find it where they'll send you over. So that was that, like, but I'll look up the list. There's some universities that
That's
have
what was just put
connections.
in the chat.
Yeah. So there's probably one. Thank you. So there's some universities that have special connections that they'll send people over. So that's probably the ones you're looking at if you are coming over. So I think that's like, for example, Kansai Gaidai University. I need to double check if they still do it. I think there's like North Texas program. There's like Alabama. So let me double check and I'll add them to the links. So
Great, thank you very much. So for our panelists, if you don't mind, please go ahead and put your contact information in the chat. And to wrap up this session, if maybe you can give a few words of advice to leave folks with, that would be great. Or just a sentence that you live by. We'll start with Seanacey.
Let's see. So yeah, just keeping yourself open to opportunities, even if it might not be exactly what you imagined for yourself. Anything that sort of gets you closer, or that might be related, can be really valuable down the road. So yeah, I just encourage anyone who is feeling frustrated or stuck right now to look at other avenues. And then the one other thing I want to say really quickly was, when you're building those personal connections, something for me that's been really important has been, there's this desire to, right at the very beginning, to kind of network and say, you know, like, what can we do for each other? And sometimes that really works, but sometimes that can put people off depending on the situation. So something that has been valuable for me in thinking, you know, about the sort of long vision for things is really forging personal connections, being genuine without thinking immediately about what you're going to get in return. Because people are so kind and will really bend over backwards for you. But to show that you're someone who's going to show up, you know, do your part too, and not just kind of try to ride on coattails. That's worked out really well, you know, in developing long-term business relationships and relationships within the community.
Thank you so much. Yes, being genuine, that is so important, and building those connections. And I'm sure, Derek, you can attest to that again and again. How about a few last words from you?
Just building off what Seanacey had said, is that, you know, during your JET experience, you're going to meet a lot of people, you're going to make a lot of great connections, and you never know, you know, what that's going to lead to every single connection you make. I mean, for example, I forgot to mention that I also do a lot of wedding photography, a lot of wedding photography here in Japan. And that started just by meeting someone at an event where I just talked to some wedding planner, and I mentioned, oh yeah, I'm a photographer. And then she says, oh, can you try a wedding? How about you try one? And then I tried one, and then now I do about 20 or 30 weddings a year. And I even was doing weddings in Hawaii and Los Angeles, taking Japanese people from Japan to overseas and doing it. So just, you never know. It might be months down the line, it might be years down the line, but every connection you make in Japan, especially as a JET, definitely keep their cards, you know, digitalize them too, and keep track, because you never know.
Thanks so much, Derek. And yes, the ability of one thing to lead to another, you just can't have tunnel vision. You have to keep all the options open, and opportunities will come to you. How about you, Nathan?
I have always believed that, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It may be because I come from a huge family. Every year, every summer, 600 people get together to say, hey, we family. And what I found is instead of going back to the States or needing to go back to the States so much, I have built my own I've made my own network here. That network will always serve you. Okay, so be kind to people. even if it's just for opportunistic reasons, be kind to people, all right? Because the more you connect, the more connections you have. And people are always happy to hear back from you because, I mean, more and more we are disconnected. I mean, we're doing this conference online. This is an example of that. So the more you can make those connections and keep those connections, the better off you're going to be in whichever path you decide to take. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Throwing out that good karma. And we'll wrap it up with you, Markane.
Sure. I guess my words of wisdom is the old saying is just do something you love. Do something you love. I mean, just from all the great presenters today, Nathan, Seanacey, Derek, just hearing their passion of what they do is just amazing and, you know, heartwarming to know that they love. I could feel it, you know, like I know you guys love what you do. And I think same for me is it took a while to find something I love to do. So I had to zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. And that's life, or I guess in Seanacey, it's a box. But yeah, however you want to, you know, circle, boxes, zigzags or something, you know, just keep on searching and finding what you love. And just, that's your job. So find something you love and then make yourself happy and make other people happy. And you have a good life.
Thank you, everyone. Really great words of wisdom. And thank you so much for sharing, as Markane was saying, your passion and your energy for what you're doing. All of us are very appreciative of that. So Derek and Seanacey, Markane and Nathan, thank you again. And hopefully you folks have your information in the chat. And are all of you able to stay around a little bit more for the breakout rooms? Or great, thank you. Jessica, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. All right, so I know everyone's a little needs a little bit of a break, and so we're going to take just a 5-minute break. So please, like before, get up, stretch a little, and then we will start our keynote speaker. And after that, we will have an opportunity for breakout rooms, and that way you can make some of those little connections. It might be quick, but you never know when they'll come in handy. So thank you. Please go take a break.